Well, hi, everyone. Welcome to Thursday Night Saws, June 27th. Not a full meeting tonight, I guess you'd say, because we have some TV I want to watch later. I wanted to welcome everybody. Hope all are doing well. I see we got 2 or 3 on. I don't know if we're going to have anyone join on the panel tonight, but we may have. Hope all is well. If you have any questions, you can add them to the comments. We're on live on Facebook as well as on YouTube. If you are on Instagram, you'll have to go over for the live presentation. Just wanted to announce that for next time if you haven't seen the messages on Instagram. We got a couple comments that came in I wanted to kind of answer tonight. Also, if you'd like to, you can log on. I have the meeting IDs to, if you have Zoom on your phone or computer, you can sign in on that and join us live. I have a lot going on. I'm pretty much, back just in the office as far as that goes, but we've got a lot of training still going on in 2 or 3 areas of the country. And so we're very, very pleased to be able to get things out and about, answering questions and doing workshops. So, but just a couple things that I wanted to go over. I put to I guess 2 weeks ago, a video out on Instagram, had several thousand views on it, a lot of comments and things coming in having to do with the barber chair. Chris Chiles had sent me a short video, had a lot of discussions I put on there about some different questions about what you thought caused it. We had a lot of comments in on that. And then I put out one just talking about notches and hinges and how those things work. Had a lot of comments back that more or less stated that the notch depth was too shallow. And looking at that barber chair video, and they're still out there on YouTube as well as on Instagram, if you look at that really closely, there was a face notch on there, and there were some other trees, smaller ones that had been cut there, and the operator definitely had some good face notches on those. He did put a very shallow face notch on the one that barber chaired, but a lot of people saying, well, it need to be deeper. As you start to think through it a little bit, there's a lot of people with different, I guess, opinions out there and things. But what I was trying to get people to do is to take a look and to figure out, what are the variables there that can cause that split or that barber chair on the tree. I was even watching one today. That gentleman was cutting the tree and had already taken a bucket and taken limbs off the backside of it. It just fell into an open area. Didn't have a line or anything in it. And that could have been one of the issues on the one that barber chaired, was having too much pressure on the line. But it was kind of interesting to watch as he was driving wedges in the back of the tree. And he was driving. You could see the tree was shaking there, and it every time he hit the hammer onto the wedge, and he kept driving, and then he took the chainsaw and he thinned out the hinge, and the tree went over. And if you looked at it, he had taken all the limbs off of the backside of it over the roadway, and so it definitely had changed into a forward-leaning tree. But to sit there and hit those wedges over and over and over, you have to realize what's holding this thing. There was nothing looked like it was touching in the top, and it's hard to say unless you have all the information there. But I don't know why people think that they can drive the tree over, with driving the wedges when the hinge is too thick. And that was really, I think, the issue there. And that was the issue really on that barber chair, I think. And I noticed Chris Chiles just joined us. I don't know if he's driving or able to talk tonight, but I saw him pop up on there. But as we start to think through it a little bit, what causes something like that barber chair? And Chris, you had sent me the picture, what the whole story was on that, and I think I finally figured out it was a hickory tree. Looks like. What was the deal on that one, Chris?
So the deal with that tree was some friends of mine. They were taking that down for a customer. They were a little concerned because it was close to some gazebos and a fence. So they decided they'd leave the hinge a little heavy, and it didn't turn out so well.
Did they bore cut that tree?
He told me that he did.
Yeah. And so he had a bore cut through it. He just decided to leave a little thicker hinge onto it. And then, did he have a line in it?
Yeah, they had a line in it.
All right. I noticed there was a wedge on the ground, but I don't know if it fell out as the tree started to move, as he started the video, or whether he was just applying pressure onto the rope, or I guess if he did bore cut, I couldn't tell that it had been released with a strap in the back, but he bore cut it. His plan was to bore cut it through, set his hinge up, and then I guess tension the line a little bit, and it went over, and that's when the barber chair happened. Very straight grain tree, and a little bit too much pressure there, I think. So, but it wasn't as much pressure as it was the hinge was thick. If you'd have went down probably half of that, and I don't know, he had probably 2.5 inches at least on that tree, which was probably close to 18-inch tree, but it definitely, I think, probably should have had one a little thinner, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, as you were checking on there, I was talking about when I was watching the video today that the operator had taken the limbs off the backside hanging over a road. He put back cut into it, put his wedges in the back, and he was hammering, and he drove them. Tree wasn't going over, so he finally took his chainsaw and thinned the hinge out on each side, and the tree went on over to his target. And I see that quite often, and even working with some of the Forest Service back over the years with burn situations and stuff. The guys don't want to get the hinges too thin, so they don't want the tree to go wrong, so they start driving the wedges in. And if you drive the wedge and you've got too much hinge, it does nothing but shake the top, and you can really increase your chances of struck bys and stuff, and even splitting the hinge out. So you have to think through. You have to have a bendable, I call it, hinge. It has to be able to start tearing from the back to the front. So you can't have a hinge that's too thick. And we talk about 10% kind of as a maximum, and that'd be of the diameter DBH. But it's something where once he thinned that hinge up, the tree went all over. So that tells me that he had the weight. And not only, he had quite a lot of hangover the road, looked like on another video I was watching. So he did take a lot off that back side, but he didn't put a line into it. He's just going to wedge it over. And, I think it would have probably went without the wedging if you think about he had taken the back limbs off and kind of turned it into a forward-leaning tree. So all he had to do is have a thinner hinge to begin with. What determines the depth of the notch that you need? And we always talk about you want a notch that's about 80% of the diameter. That's not how deep into it. That's not really leaving 20% in the depth. That's basically thinking through the process of the back of the notch is the front line of the hinge. So what we try to figure is on that tree, how long of a hinge do we need to support the side weight? So we say that 80% as a minimum, and then the thickness of the hinge 10% as a maximum. And those are kind of the rule of thumbs that we think about. And if you've got a perfectly round tree, you're looking at 1/4 to 1/3 into the diameter to be at that about 80%. But if you've got a tree that is really egg-shaped in the direction you need for it to go, then you may have to cut in even farther. If you've got a tree like a nice hardwood that's flat on the leaning side, you don't have to go in very deep, because the depth of the hinge doesn't make it fall. The weight forward of the fulcrum, which in that case is the back of the notch, even with the hinge is your fulcrum. So you start thinking about that. The reason that you cut the depth in is because of the lean and the stump shape. So it's not I'm cutting in 1/3 or 1/2 or 1/4. It's looking to see where would my hinge be good that's roughly 80% of the diameter, and that's using DBH, diameter breast height, is what we calculate off of. And if I can get it into a flat side, I really don't have to go in very far at all. If I get an opening there, that gives me the length of hinge and length of notch that I need to be able to control the tree. And some people say, well, you want to go in deeper on a big tree, makes it easier to drive over. And I guess that would be true if you have a rope in the top. Moving in farther might give you a little bit of something. But, if you've got a pretty heavy back lean, hey, Warren, if you've got a pretty heavy back lean, that can also break off and go backwards too. So a shallow notch on a back leaning tree gives you better support, and it also gives you more lifting power with the wedges. And so when you start to look at that, but some people say, well, no, I'm going to go in deeper, so I can lift it faster. Well, if you've got a big tree and you start lifting with a couple wedges from the back, you can actually move wedges around closer to the hinge. That increases your segments and gives you a faster lift. So in a big tree, that's great. In a small tree, you don't have that option. And when I say small, let's say 20-inch diameter and smaller. So you really want to think about how that plays out. So first thing that we recommend, or I do, is to think about, I need a spot for that tree that's wide enough and long enough to be able to place the tree. And so if that's in a direction of lean, that's great. If I need to steer between other objects, that's great. If I need to think about the tree is back lean, I'm going to have to put in my plan to be able to either pull it over or push it over or wedge it over. So that's kind of the process. So that's the first thing, is I'm looking for a spot wide enough and long enough to place that tree. And then I look at, what do I have in the shape of the stump? How high do I want to cut that stump? To be in good fiber sometimes, or sometimes people prefer to go higher than the bell or the root flares on the tree. But if you're in a real high dollar wood area, you want to go as close to the ground as you can, because that gives you the the ability to take and maximize your wood length, your board feet. And so when you start to think about if I leave a 1 foot stump, and what's a board foot? I ask that question. Sometimes some people know, but some people don't. And so a board foot is 12 inches by 12 inches, 1 inch thick. So if you've got a stump that's 2 feet high, you've got 2 board feet in a vertical, 1 inch thick, and however many inches you have across that log. So when you start to look at that scaling, if I can go lower down, I can be able to maximize what it was paid for or bought or sold, and sometimes gives you better abilities for trim work and stuff. So you want to think about the height of the stump, and can I place that tree someplace where it's long enough and wide enough without any hazards or obstacles? And obstacle being something that I might cause danger to, and the hazard part of it would be something that might cause danger to me. So the shape of the tree gives you info towards the length of the hinge, and that length of the hinge would designate how far I want to go in for my face notch. The next thing is that if you put a 45-degree notch on there, how far is the tree going to go? When it starts to fall before the face notch closes. If I have a straight tree with a 45-degree notch, it's going to move halfway to the ground, and it's going to close the notch and break the hinge at that point. And that could do a couple of things. I could lose control at that point, or I could actually take and pull fiber, or even split the tree at that point. So I have to think about that. That's the biggest thing. It's not how far I'm cutting into the tree for my notch depth. It's how open is the notch and how accurate is the back corner of that notch to be able to allow that hinge to work with no resistance. And that's what gives me the target, the placement, as well as maintaining the quality of fiber there in that case. So, if you think about also a tree with back lean, if it leans back 3 or 4 feet, and you've got to pull it over or wedge it over, if you've got, a 30, 40, 45 degree face notch, what are you going to have at an opening when that tree stands up and goes over? It's going to reduce the amount of hinge that you have. And so important to kind of think through that. But it's quite interesting. It's something to where those are just kind of the basics of it. So then you start to add in the wedging process. It starts to become a little bit different with different trees, that's for sure. When I looked at that one where he was driving the wedges, not understanding that it was really the thickness of the hinge that was holding it. And a lot of times, we get nervous with that because of obstacles around and stuff like that. But if that was the case, maybe it needs to be rigged or lined, But it's something that understanding that hinge just has to be flexible. It has to be bendable. So it has to be thin enough for that, or you're gonna end up with pulled fiber and possible splitting. So, but anyway, that's kind of the thought process. If anybody has any comments or ideas on that, that kind of explains just a little bit. But I'm gonna tell you, there was 200-300 comments and things that came in total on that one video that Chris was talking about. There was a lot that when I asked questions back, not everybody could explain exactly what was happening. And so concepts of the videos on my sites have to do with education and training. And people have shared with me over the years, professionals, homeowners, woodcutters of all types. And so that's the process that I try to go through is to be able to explain everything. And it's so important. One comment came in and said, you need to fire that guy. But I guess, maybe you need to kind of think about maybe you could train that person with just a couple-minute conversation that would have them capable of doing that without any barber chair. In some cases, too, it's the tree, it's not the operator. People talk about experience quite often, but experience, as Soren always used to say, he said, you have to think about there's two different kinds. There's good ones and bad ones. We tend to learn more from the bad ones. And so comments come in on that. But, when you start to think about an opinion, how did you gain that experience? How did you gain that opinion? That comes back to being able to explain what your plan was, looking at the information on the tree, and then being able to come back and reevaluate and figure out, did it work or didn't it work? That's kind of the process. So that's kind of my verbiage for tonight, but it's so important to think through those basics. Well, Warren Causey checked on there. He's a new father. He's got a son now. Hope
That's
everything's
right.
still going well.
It's going well. A week today.
A week today.
Yeah.
It was last Thursday, wasn't it?
Yeah, I missed Thursday night saws last week because my wife was in labor. About 13 minutes into the show last week, we had the baby, or she had the baby, and the sleepless nights are getting a little bit more streamlined. So that's always good.
Did you get him a saw cleaned up, ready to go?
Yeah, oh, it's ready. Yeah, he's got a little climbing harness and everything. Yeah.
There's Chris. Did you make it to Pennsylvania?
Yes, sir. I'm in Pennsylvania, so be home midday tomorrow.
Oh, that'll be good. And so it's been a good one. People are watching and thinking and asking questions, and I think that's a key to it. Chris, you had you posted a thing on your Facebook about the bore cut competition up there. Went really good, huh? I said that bore cut competition went well up there, I saw.
Yeah, it was fun. I love the competition part of it. It helps with the learning process.
Looked like you had a pretty good group. Everybody did pretty good on it. There's only like one that cut out there a little bit. Did you start off with that, or did you do that for a follow-up?
I did it for a follow-up.
But I don't know. There's a big TV show going on tonight, so I figured we kind of cut it close. Give you guys some rest, too. But next Thursday night, I'll get stuff back together. Any comments or anything we need to think about? Any questions that you had?
Well, that bore cut or that barber chair video from last week. I can't remember. Do we say if that tree was being pulled over or not?
Yeah, Chris was explaining it did have a rope in it, but he
Okay.
did bore cut it, and he just set the hinge up too thick because
Too
he was a
thick,
little
yeah.
bit scared of the objects around. So it
I
just
thought it was being pulled, but I just wanted to make sure.
that was one of the causes. But I think the main thing there was the hinge was just too thick for that particular great fiber. But it's something where most people didn't see the face notch because they think that face notch has got to be back in there half the way, or a third of the way. We were just explaining that. I don't know. I think I've already gone through that before you got on, was how to determine the length of it. So that we're going to talk more about that next week. I've got some video that I'm putting together. So things are going good. But anyway, guys, I'm going to kind of cut it short tonight so we can get in there. And I appreciate y'all dropping in. And hopefully next week we'll do the same. And so,
Sure.
And I'd like to say everything, good sawing to everybody out there working. And if you have any comments or things, you can send them to me on info@forestapps.com or place it in the comments on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. And we'll be glad to try to get those things answered for you or give you some ideas to think about anyway. So I appreciate that. And if you have any interest in training, we've got Uprooted Tree with Chris, and he's covering most of the areas of the states. I just got John Tidwell from down in Tupelo, Mississippi, is added now, and so he's going to start doing some things in the western side of Georgia, and David will be working on the Georgia thing. So we've got quite a lot, and schedules are packing up for the fall. It looks like we got some time off. Not too many people do training during the summer, especially the hot days. So I don't know how much more. I know Chris has still got some things to do, but it's any issues or things that you have you'd like to think about a training program, shoot us a message, and we'll get those things up. So thank you very much. Good sawing to you, and we'll see you next Thursday night.